I found out I was just the spare son. I was a purse for them for many years until the will decided everything. So I gave them nothing in return. No more bill payments. No more extra help. A month later, Mom sent a cold, one-line text, "Pay the mortgage." No warmth, no words, just need. I replied once. "My name's Liam, and let me tell you, any doubts I had about where I really stood in my family vanished the day I stumbled across their will. There was no big family meeting, no heartfelt sit-down where they laid it all out. Nope. I found out completely by accident, just ridiculous luck. It was a few months back, and I happened to be at my parents' house, the very same house I'd been helping them pay off for the last 5 years. Mortgage payments, grocery runs, fixing whatever broke, I was the one holding everything together. Meanwhile, my brother Oliver? He didn't lift a finger. I mean nothing. No job, no chores, not a single ounce of effort. Just parked on the couch day in and day out acting like the world owed him something. And apparently, my parents were perfectly fine with that arrangement. That day, I was doing what I usually did, helping my dad with paperwork because God forbid either of them do on their own. He asked me to check a bunch of documents, legal stuff, financial records, nothing unusual. Until I spotted one particular folder in the pile. It was labeled Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament. I'm not the snooping type, but I'd be lying if I said my curiosity didn't get the better of me. I mean, I've been the one making sure they kept the lights on and a roof over their heads. Was it really so crazy to wonder how they planned to handle things down the line? So yeah, I opened it. And that's when I felt the floor drop out from under me. Everything, and I mean everything, was being left to Oliver. The house. Their savings. Every last asset. My name didn't show up once. Well, except for one of those generic, "we love both our sons equally" lines. Right? Equally. Sure they do. And that's exactly why their so-called golden boy was set to walk away with everything, while the son who kept them above water didn't even earn a passing mention. I felt like the biggest fool in the world. There I was, breaking my back to keep their lights on, covering bills, stocking their fridge, making sure they never had to go without. All the while, they were behind the scenes drawing up a future where I didn't even exist. And Oliver? He wasn't just lazy, he was downright entitled. Never offered to help, never chipped in, never so much as asked if they needed anything. But somehow he had them wrapped around his finger, convinced he was the one who deserved the world on a silver platter. Maybe it was the whole younger sibling thing. Maybe they just never stopped coddling him. Or maybe he was just really dang good at playing them. Either way, their minds were made up. I sat there, just staring at that will, hands trembling, not from fear, but from that gut-deep fury you feel when someone you love kicks you in the teeth without blinking. How long had this been their plan? Was I always just the fallback guy, the one who'd pick up the slack with no thanks and no reward? I must have been frozen there for a while, because eventually I heard Dad's voice from the hallway. "Hey, Liam, what's taking so long?" he asked as he walked in. I didn't hide it. I held the will up, looked him right in the eye, and said in the calmest voice I could muster, "So, this is it? Everything goes to Oliver? After everything I've done?" For a second, he turned ghost white. But then he let out this sigh, like I was just some teenager overreacting. "Liam, it's not what you think." I nearly laughed. "Really?" I fired back. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty straightforward. I've been the one footing your mortgage, hauling groceries, and patching up every little thing that breaks around here, while Oliver does nothing. And still, he's the one who gets it all." Dad shifted uncomfortably, couldn't even meet my eyes. And the best explanation he could offer? "It's complicated." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just those two hollow words that meant absolutely nothing. He gave me nothing but a pitiful excuse and that same old look, like he expected me to swallow my pride, shrug it off, and get right back to being their human checkbook. I should have walked out then and there. Honestly, part of me wanted to. But I needed to hear it from both of them. So I called for my mom. She walked in, saw the will in my hands, and froze. There was this flicker of guilt in her eyes, I'll give her that much. But whatever ounce of remorse I thought might come, it vanished the second she opened her mouth. "Liam, sweetheart, you don't need the inheritance," she said in that soft, condescending tone parents use when they think they're being wise. "You've got a solid job. You're independent. But Oliver, he's had a rough time. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." She said it like she was being generous. Like handing my freeloading brother everything I'd helped them hold onto was somehow an act of kindness. They weren't clueless. They weren't confused. They knew what they were doing. And in their minds, it was perfectly reasonable. Decades of babying Oliver, brushing off his laziness, and now they were handing him the keys to the kingdom. Meanwhile, I was just the support beam, the backup plan, the afterthought. "Got it," I said, voice calm as ice. "Good to know where we stand." Then I turned, walked out of the house, and didn't look back. They were still calling after me as I reached the door, but I didn't care. I slammed it shut and left them to sit with the choice they'd made. From that moment on, I was done. I didn't text. Didn't check in. Didn't swing by with groceries or tools. For the first time in years, I let them fend for themselves. The faucet leaking? Call a plumber. The fridge empty? Figure it out. The mortgage due? Well, good luck, because I wasn't the one footing that bill anymore. They wanted to build their future around Oliver? Fine. Let him carry the weight. I was done playing the dependable son in a rigged game. The silence stretched for about 2 weeks. At first, I think they figured I was just sulking. Probably thought I'd cool off, swallow my pride, and come crawling back like I always had before. Maybe they assumed I'd apologize for daring to be upset about being completely cut out of the will. Classic Liam, reliable, predictable, willing to take the hit and still show up with groceries and a smile. But not this time. And as the days passed, still no word from me, and more importantly, not a single dollar. You could feel the shift. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. The property taxes are due. That was it. No, hey son, how are you doing? No apology. No acknowledgement of everything I'd done for them over the years. Just a straight-up request, like I was still some nameless line item on their list of expenses. No warmth. No humility. Just business. I stared at that message for a long second, half annoyed, half amazed. They actually thought nothing had changed. That I'd still play the part. Still fork over my money. Still keep things afloat, despite the fact they'd made it crystal clear I didn't matter when it came to their future. I typed back, calm and cool. Pretty sure Oliver's got it covered. It is his house now, after all. 5 minutes later, my mom called. I didn't answer. Then came the follow-up text, this time from her. Liam, please don't be like this. We need to talk. Funny how the conversation only became urgent when the bills started piling up. When reality kicked in and they realized their golden boy wasn't exactly cut out to be the provider. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. My phone buzzed again. Oliver. I didn't even have to open the message to know it was going to be something ridiculous. And boy, did he deliver. Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do. That was Oliver's next text. Like it was no big thing. Like I hadn't just been politely drop-kicked by the very people I'd spent years supporting. I almost laughed out loud. Not a big deal? He was really trying to act like I had no right to be upset. Like I was overreacting to being completely cut out of the life I helped keep together. I replied, simple and clean. Nah, I think you've got it covered. You're the favorite after all. Took him about a minute to fire back. Oh my God, are you seriously still mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money. Funny how the value of something drops real fast when you're the one holding it. The hypocrisy was rich. So I hit him with this. Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay the mortgage, right? A few minutes passed and then Mom chimed in again. This time she went straight for the guilt. Liam, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up and now you're just refusing us. I had to take a long breath, real deep, to keep from hurling my phone across the room. All while they babied Oliver and let him coast through life like a passenger in first class. I replied. You made it clear I wasn't part of this family when you left me out of the will. Now Oliver can take care of you. I could practically hear the dramatic gasp on her end. Then Dad decided to jump in and this made everything inside froze. We're not asking for much, he texted. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months. Until we figure things out. Don't be selfish. That word hit like a punch to the gut. After all the years I did everything I thought a good son was supposed to do. Stepped up when they needed me. Never asked for anything in return. And what did I get for it? Nothing. I clenched my jaw, took a slow breath, and typed back. No. I'm done. They made their choice. Now they could sit in it. The silence held for a day. I knew my parents well enough to know they wouldn't just roll over. But even I didn't see what came next. The following morning I woke up to a notification on my phone. A bank transfer request. My brows furrowed as I unlocked it, half awake, already annoyed. It was from my mom. She had actually sent me a money request. Like I was an app. Like I was a full ATM that just needed to be punched the right way. The amount? $4,255. I stared at it, half laughing, half stunned at the sheer audacity. No, please, or we're in a tough spot. Just a cold, entitled grab for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. I hit decline without even blinking. Not 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then came the text. Liam, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I waited, took my time and typed. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Oliver. A minute later, another call. Declined. Then, like clockwork, another message. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. I tapped out my reply, slow and deliberate. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, another message popped up. This time from Dad. You're really gonna let your parents become homeless? Wow. That one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation wasn't even subtle. It was so over the top it was almost impressive. A text from Oliver. Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This smug, entitled little leech really thought he had the right to lecture me? After everything? I fired back. You mean the money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His reply came quick, like he had it locked and loaded. You know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, so now it was about what he could afford? It was totally fine for me to empty my account to keep everything afloat, but the moment the responsibility shifted to him, suddenly he was all tapped out. I replied without missing a beat. Guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose. No response. I went to bed without that heavy weight of obligation on my chest. I felt free. The next day, I was at work halfway through an email when my phone buzzed with a call from the front desk at my apartment building. Hey, Liam? Your parents are here. I nearly dropped the phone. What? I said, sitting up straighter. The woman on the other end hesitated. They're downstairs in the lobby. And, well, they've got suitcases. They're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls. Oh, my God. They really showed up at my apartment. Because I stopped paying their bills? I closed my eyes and took a long, steady breath. Please don't let them up, I said, trying to stay calm. I'm not expecting them. They're being kind of pushy, the woman at the front desk admitted. I don't care. They can leave. Then I hung up. Almost instantly, my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. We're downstairs. Open the door. No, are you okay? No, we're sorry. A second later, another message came through. Liam, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled, sharp and loud. My hands were already balling into fists. They weren't going to let this go. Not quietly. If they wanted to show up unannounced and treat me like I was still their personal ATM, then they were about to get a lesson they wouldn't forget. I was pissed. The audacity, the absolute nerve of these people to come to my home like this. No warning. Just rolling up with suitcases like I was the full hotel concierge. Not a phone call first. Not even a fake apology. I marched down to the lobby, turned the corner, and there they were. And I yanked the door open. And there they were. Mom. Dad. And of course, Oliver. All standing in a neat little triangle like they were about to hold a full-blown family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, wearing that patented, disappointed mother look, lips pursed, eyebrows tilted, ready to perform. Dad stood stiff as a board, hands jammed in his pockets, wearing an expression that screamed equal parts frustration and entitlement. Like he couldn't believe I was actually forcing him to deal with this face-to-face. And Oliver? That smug little leech had the audacity to look bored. Like all of this was just a mild inconvenience in his otherwise stress-free life. Like none of this had anything to do with him. The second Mom saw me, she launched straight into her dramatics. Liam. Finally. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, cool as ever. No. What you need to do is leave. She blinked, stunned. Like the words didn't compute. Excuse me? You heard me. My tone didn't waver. Calm. Solid. You don't get to just show up at my place demanding money. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Dad scoffed. Loud and dismissive. Are you seriously going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge? I let out a short, cold laugh. The kind that has no humor in it. Petty grudge? You mean the one where I spent years paying your bills, and then you wrote me out of your will like I was a stranger? That grudge. Mom gasped. Hand to her chest like she'd just been shot. She had the tears queued up, the trembling lip, the whole act. Liam, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. No, you did what was best for Oliver. Just say it. A long, heavy pause hung in the air like fog. No one moved. No one breathed. Then, finally, Oliver opened his mouth, for the first time since I walked in. Look, man, he muttered, shrugging. I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to Oliver and finally let the leash off. No, you just sit there and take. That's all you've ever done. You're 28 years old, Oliver. Get a frickin' job. His face flushed red instantly. Dude, seriously? He snapped, his voice cracking somewhere between fake offense and embarrassment. You heard me. You wanna inherit the house? Then start acting like someone who owns one. You wanna be the golden child? Cool, then you start paying their bills. I'm done playing your financial bodyguard. Oliver dropped his gaze and suddenly found the pavement fascinating. The mouthy little brother who always had something slick to say? Quiet as a mouse now. Mom stepped in, voice softening as she took a long breath, reloading her guilt trip like it was a well-practiced monologue. Liam. He's your brother. I nodded slowly. Yep. And I've supported him longer than either of you ever have. That one hit. I saw it land. Right between the eyes. Dad's face darkened, his jaw tightening like he was ready to blow. You're being selfish. I let out an actual laugh, loud, genuine, no filter. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I waved a hand between the two of them. You decided Oliver deserved everything. I got nothing, just erased. And now that it's time to live with the fallout of your choice, you're suddenly looking at me to clean it all up. I shook my head. Not happening. Mom's tone snapped, her voice sharper now, more defensive than persuasive. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean stay quiet, swallow the betrayal, and keep covering your bills like a good little son? Because let's be honest, that's what you really meant. Dad stepped forward, puffing himself up like he used to when I was a kid, trying to intimidate me with that old-school, father-knows-best posture. Liam, he said, like I was being unreasonable. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I stared straight at him. And I did. For years. I paid your bills, kept you afloat. And in return, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You cut me out. Like I didn't exist. Mom's voice wavered, her lip trembling like she was about to cry. We thought you'd understand. I let out a tired breath, shaking my head slowly. Oh, I understand just fine. I was never really part of this family, not in the way that mattered. I was a wallet, a safety net. That's all. I turned to Oliver, who was still glued to the spot, eyes down like he was hoping to blend into the floor tiles. And you? What's your excuse? He didn't respond. You had years to step up, to grow up, to actually contribute. But you didn't. You just coasted. You knew they'd cover for you, and when they couldn't, you figured I would. Oliver finally looked up, his face twisted somewhere between guilt and anger. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. Yeah, you didn't ask. You just enjoyed the benefits. Big difference. He opened his mouth like he had something to say. Some comeback, some defense. But then he shut it, because deep down he knew I was right. Mom gave it one last try, pulling out the oldest card in the deck. Liam, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I looked at her, not with anger, not even with sadness, just clarity. I held her gaze for a long, quiet moment before I finally answered. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze, and that told me everything I needed to know. I let out a long, slow breath, one I felt like I'd been holding in for years. We're done here. Then I turned around and walked back into my apartment, shutting the door behind me, not slamming it, just closing it. Final. I barely made it halfway back to the couch before my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Wow, after everything we've done for you, you're really going to refuse us? I blocked their numbers, one by one. And for a second, I felt like I'd finally cut the last thread they'd been yanking on since I was a kid. Within 24 hours, things started spiraling. It didn't take long before my Facebook feed turned into a soap opera with comment sections. My parents, who had never exactly been what you'd call tech-savvy, had somehow figured out how to air every ounce of their self-righteous drama online. Loud, public, petty. At first, I rolled my eyes. Typical. They'd always loved attention, especially when they could play the victims. I figured it was just the usual melodrama. But as I scrolled, I realized this wasn't just about bills anymore. Post after post disguised as family values and lessons in loyalty, but it was all aimed at me. Not by name, of course. That would have taken actual courage. But it was clear. One post from Mom read, "I didn't raise my son to be so selfish. Real family shows up for each other, even when it's hard." A few of her friends chimed in with comments like, "Kids these days have no heart. Some people forget who raised them. What a disappointment. So out of touch with what really matters." I sat there, staring at the screen, phone in hand. And I didn't feel shame. I felt relief. Because now I wasn't just done emotionally. Then Dad jumped into the fray. "So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most," he wrote. "We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us." He even tagged me in the post. Just to twist the knife. "I hope you're happy." Passive-aggressive punctuation and all. But the real punch in the gut? That came from Oliver. Of course he couldn't resist. He shared his own post, oozing with fake virtue and wrapped in the usual smug tone he used when he wanted to sound like the better man. "Some people think family is just about money," he wrote. "They don't understand that it's about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but not everyone gets that." Then, the cherry on top. "I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents and I'm grateful for everything they've done." Everyone reading knew exactly who he meant. I sat there, staring at the screen like it was some twisted parody of my life. They'd flipped the entire situation on its head, turned me into the ungrateful son. The selfish one who'd abandoned his selfless, loving parents. The cold-hearted man who refused to support the very people who gave him everything. But the part that really hurt? It wasn't the lies. I sat with it. Let the emotion pass. Let the anger cool just enough so I wouldn't do something impulsive. If they wanted to drag my name through the mud, then I was going to speak the truth. So I picked up my phone and started typing. I wasn't logging in to argue. I just wanted to tell the truth. So I sat down and posted this. Some of you might have seen posts from my parents and brother painting me as the selfish son who turned his back on his family. The one who refused to help them in their time of need. I wish it wasn't necessary to say anything at all, but since they've decided to share their version of the story publicly, I think it's only fair I share mine. Since I was old enough to earn a paycheck, I've helped my family. I've paid bills, bought groceries, handled house repairs, and even covered things like property taxes. I didn't do it for praise, I did it because I love them. Because I thought that's what family does. But over the years, I've learned that love without respect is a one-way street. While I was working, saving, showing up, my parents chose to favor my brother Oliver. They gave him everything, their attention, their trust, and eventually, in their will, everything they owned. I wasn't considered. Not even once. And yet, they still expected me to keep paying the bills. Still expected me to be the one who showed up when things got hard. I wasn't the son they planned a future for, I was the one they counted on when something needed fixing. To some, that might just sound like how family works. But I disagree. Family doesn't mean using someone until they burn out. Family isn't about convenience. When I saw the will, I realized something painful but necessary. I wasn't part of their future. I was just their fallback. Their plan B. And I finally decided that was no longer okay. I've been called selfish, cold, ungrateful. But if setting boundaries and refusing to be used makes me those things, so be it. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I hit post. And for the first time in this whole mess, I didn't feel like I was defending myself. I'm not just some wallet that can pull money from whenever it suits them. And as for Oliver, it's time he finally grows up. He's 28 years old and has never worked a day in his life. Never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have enabled him for so long, it's no surprise he's their favorite. Now it's on him to step up and stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone following this mess and siding with my parents, just know there are 2 sides to every story. Yes, family matters. But so does mutual respect. This isn't me turning my back on family. This is me choosing myself. And to my parents, if you happen to see this, I genuinely wish you the best. But I am done being your doormat. I hit post and instantly I felt a wave of relief. For the first time I was telling the truth out loud about how they'd used me for years. About how I was always expected to be the one who showed up, paid the bills, fixed what was broken, but never once was treated like an equal. They only reached out when they needed something. Never to ask how I was doing. Never to offer support. Just demands. I wasn't going to let their version of the story define me. And then the reactions started coming in fast. People I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. Old friends, extended family, even people I barely expected to notice. The tone was the same. I had no idea. Good for you. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. A few of my cousins, some of my parents' old friends, even a few distant relatives liked the post. Some messaged me privately telling me how sorry they were for what I'd been through. And for the first time, it felt like the truth wasn't hiding anymore. It wasn't buried beneath guilt trips or gaslighting. It was out there, raw and real. But with the truth came the backlash. My parents and Oliver lost it. Oliver sent me a message, all caps and attitude. You're a traitor. You really had to air all our business like this? You've got no respect for family. Then came the call from Dad. He was practically yelling into the phone. You've ruined everything, Liam. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your family. But here's the thing, I didn't regret it. Done with the manipulation. Done being used. Done carrying burdens that were never mine to hold. Done being expected to sacrifice without ever being seen. Now, I finally had the chance to live my life. On my terms. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. From now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time to move forward. And I will.